we're going to talk about habit number 6, which is synergize. And what does synergy or synergize mean to you?
Working together.
Working together?
Teamwork.
Teamwork? Creative cooperation. We're talking about positive synergy, not negative synergy, positive synergy. So the question really is, are two heads better than one if they're working together? And let's just give this a test. I've got two fantastic mountain scenes. Just pick the side you want and put something on that mountain scene. Everybody gets a chance to stand up, grab a color, put something on there to make these mountain scenes beautiful. You ready? Go. Just pick one. Pick one. And you can do 2 or 3 at a time. We've got a sun.
What do you got over here? Oh, we have trees, beautiful pine trees, and
We've got
flowers,
a
bushes.
stream, a beautiful stream, even with
we've got
fish,
all kinds
a
of
brown
green
stream.
vegetation. We've got flowers and trees and
We've got trees. We've got a beautiful flowers. Our flowers are more beautiful than your flowers. We've got a palm tree
we've got
in the
pansies
mountain.
and
We've got a
impatiens
beautiful
and
lake.
everything. Oh, we've got a lake too. We've got a beautiful lake. We have a sun coming up, a beautiful sun.
We've got a house with a big view.
We're getting bigger
and
flowers
grass
than ever.
and happy people inside of it.
We've got flowers on the mountaintop, meadows, Sound of Music kind
People
of
with
stuff.
smiles.
Oh, good. We have snow.
Got beautiful
Good, we
flowers.
have snow.
Amy, you did right.
Oh, we have a mountain lodge. Wonderful, a lodge. Trees.
Lodge, trees.
Oh, lodge, trees, and we have another something coming up. It's looking very impressive.
You've got a new form of an animal. It's a walking.
Oh, and our sun is brighter than ever, brighter than yours.
We've got competition.
Oh, we have new trees sprouting on top of the mountains.
Beating heart in our home.
We need a beating heart, full
Oh,
of
and we have a
love.
little animal going up to
Love
the tree.
conquers all.
A squirrel.
What else did you do?
And we have clouds, beautiful blue clouds.
We've got a Jeep. You can't
We've
go
got
without a
another
Jeep
house
into a
coming
mountain.
up. And
Who would
we have,
imagine?
We have.
Have you ever had a Jeep,
We have
Carlos?
darling little animals, cuter than any. Darling little animals. A bear. Oh my word, we've got a grizzly bear, large.
We're really competing here.
Our sun is going down. The sun set.
This is synergy. This is synergy. We're creatively pulling things together, creatively cooperating.
This is a fine example of participation.
Exactly.
Challenge group.
Oh,
Challenge
no,
group.
I think they're wonderful.
Synergy is 1 + 1 = 3 or more, right? It's 3 or more. So John and Jane is 2, and we have more. We have children, so that's synergy too, isn't it? So I like the analogy of synergy in which you've got one 2x4 that'll hold up 300 pounds, another separate 2x4 that'll hold 300 pounds. When you put the two 2x4s together, it'll hold up 1,300 to 1,800 pounds. Why?
Because the sum of the two is greater than the individual strength.
And what I like to do is explain that when you put the two things together, a third part is created. And that's a real part. You can't see it, but it's a real part. And that's the creative synergy that comes together. There is a power, there's a strength of working together as a family. Now, will you each take a rope, a piece of rope, and I'm going to try to set this up so that, there you go. And I want you to synergize. You each have a rope, and Jane can just take a pair of scissors and just snip that rope real easily. But act like a family and come up with some way with those ropes so that she can't snip it, so that you build strength from each other. Now let me just have you think out of the box. Think anything that you can do. Anything that you can do to build strength. Look at the creative ways that are happening. People are braiding. We have somebody that has put it around a very strong cord.
Okay, are you ready over here, you two? Oh, look at that. Okay, I can't cut that. They got it. How you doing over here? Oh, look at
Try
this.
that. Try it.
Oh, I'm sure.
No shape a day. No way. Look at that.
No way,
You
Jose.
got that one. Okay. Give me that.
Creative cooperation.
That's super.
Finding the third alternative.
Okay.
Finding a better way to do it.
Believe me.
May I give you a little bit of a confession?
Okay. Oh, look
With
at
my
this nice
family, I was into family so much and so on like this that I kind of told all the kids, you know, I kind of knew what to do. So with television, we wanted to limit television viewing, so we took a plug and took the male end and then cut it and came up with a new little socket and then a little cord. And so when Jane and I would leave, we were young, we would leave and we would, so that they couldn't just plug it in the you know, well, it took them about 10 seconds to figure out what to do. Yeah, they couldn't, oh, they did this and that. They've laughed about us, about that, you know. I mean, you put kids to the test, they can synergize like crazy. And that's what synergy is all about. What are the barriers to synergy? What are some things that stop synergy?
There's division.
Division.
They don't work together.
They don't work together.
Negativity.
Negativity. The cancers. Criticize, condemn, complain, compete. Those cancers are barriers to synergy. Veronica?
Outside influences,
Outside. Give us an example.
when they listen to their friends opposed to their parents, or
And they're going to listen to their friends. That's why you want to create a culture, a beautiful family culture that does synergize with each other. I think sometimes on television you get cynicism. You know, the family shows and so on, you get a lot of cynicism. It doesn't generate a real creative cooperation.
There are two rules that we have to follow. Now, we talk about diversity, and diversity is great. We're for diversity. But you can have all the diversity in the world, and if you don't have these two rules, you won't have synergy in that group. And the first rule is this. In synergy, you have to value each other, and the second rule is you have to recognize strengths. Okay? Now, I'd like you to do that little exercise where it says, value one another. In the space below, pick any family member, spouse, child, brother, sister, parent, and finish the following sentences. I'm going to give you just a minute to do that, please. Go ahead. All right, can I have you back? How did that feel? Did you enjoy that? Did you? Did that seem like a good exercise? You enjoyed it? Good. Yes. That's great. And that has to do with valuing one another. And the second one is to recognize strengths. Would you turn the page over to page 40? Recognizing strengths in each other. I want to share a personal story with you about how you can create synergy when you recognize strengths in each other and you value each other. Our son was interested in languages, and after a year at the university, he decided to go work in a refugee center outside of San Francisco, where they were processing people from Asia who were coming to the United States to live. And the people that he was specifically going to work with were the Hmong people, spelled H-M-O-N-G. The Hmong people were originally from China, and they helped Americans during the Vietnam War, and they petitioned the United States to come over here, and thousands of Hmong people have come over here and settled. And so he was working with the Hmong people, and he was enjoying this. Was volunteer work for college students who were doing this. And he was working with another young man, and they did a lot of work together. They were assigned to work together as a team. And so the young man said, why don't we just room together? It would save us some money. So they did. They got an apartment together and worked together every day and enjoyed it. And one day the roommate said to our son, I've never really told you much about me. I want to tell you about myself. He said, I grew up in a home where my mother was diagnosed as clinically depressed my whole life. My father hated his job. We lived in a house that none of us liked. We all hated our house, but my grandmother died and left it to us. It was a free house, so we all lived in it. I never even talked to my sister growing up. After I graduated from high school, I went to the University of Virginia. I got a job in the cafeteria. I worked behind the scenes in the cafeteria, and so people were out there eating, and they'd bring their dirty dishes into me, and I'd scrape them off, and I'd look out these little slits when I was working behind there in the cafeteria. And he said, you know, he said this to our son, I'd see guys like you, frat guys with girls around them, guys who were popular. He said, guys who had friends. He said, I have never, ever been like that. And now you and I are here working together, and you tell me every day how good I am with this Hmong language, that I'm better than you, and you have been here longer and studied harder. Every day you tell me how good I am with the language. And you also tell me every day how much the people love me, what a natural I am, and how much they love me. He said, I've never known this in my life. Now, what kind of a team do you think they made? They made a great team. They valued each other, and they recognized strengths in each other. When we do this in our families, the entire culture of our family changes. Everyone in your family brings some strengths to the table. But it seems to be easier to look for weaknesses. I taught this in a class, and the woman came up afterwards and said, Jane, I don't agree with the thing you're saying. If I don't tell my husband every single day what he's doing wrong, how is he ever going to improve? I said, well, how's it working? She said, well, I said, right. And that's what we tend to do in families, when in reality, if we would look for strengths in each other and value each other and value those strengths, we could create synergy. I'd like to ask you to do a little exercise down here on page 40. It says, one family identified their family strengths and attributes like this. Mom, good thinker, problem solver. Dad, creative, fun. Spencer, Lori, grandma. They actually made a list of them. This is true. And in fact, we've done that in our family. John made a list of my strengths and put them on his side of the bathroom mirror, and a list of his strengths and put them on my side of the bathroom mirror, so we could remember them all the time. It changes the culture of your home when you start looking for strengths and giving each other compliments. In the space below, I'd like you to write your name. Under family member and you, would you write your name right in there under the word you? And right across from that, it says strengths. Would you write down in there 3 strengths that you bring to your family? Whatever the configuration of that family is, 3 strengths that you bring to your family. How was that? Was that easier or was that harder? Was that hard? Yeah. Some people say that's harder. But that's who you are, those strengths. I want to share another story with you about look what it means in a family to recognize strengths and to appreciate them in each other, how it brings energy. Janine is a single mom, and Janine has 2 children. She has a little boy, Scotty, who is 11, and a little girl, Debbie, who is 4. And Janine is getting ready for work one day, and Scotty's downstairs fixing breakfast, and he says, "Hey, Mom, it's time for parent-teacher conferences." She says, "Okay, Scott, great. I'll go and make an appointment with your teacher." She goes, and she's sitting across from Scott's teacher, and she says to her, "Well, tell me, how is Scott doing in reading?" And she looks down at her grade book, and she says, "Well, he's a little below grade level, but he could probably be considered in the average." And then Janine says, "How is he doing in math?" "Well, he's a little below grade level in math too, but he's sort of in that range of average." "How about spelling?" "The same." And Janine says, "How is Scott on the school ground?" "Well, I've noticed he doesn't have a lot of friends, but he seems to have 1 friend or 2 friends." And the teacher says, "Scott's a good boy. He's quiet. He's good. He's a good average boy." And Janine is thinking, are we talking about the same kid? We're talking about a boy who gets up in the morning and starts breakfast for me and his little sister while I'm getting ready for work. We're talking about a boy who picks up his little sister after school and brings her home and waits for me to come. We're talking about a boy who mows the lawn every single Saturday without being asked because he knows it's his job. We're talking about a boy who gets up in the morning on his own, gets out and shovels the walks when it snows because he knows that's his responsibility. We're talking about my best friend and confidant, and she thinks he's average. And Janine is thinking, Scott's not average. He's a champion. Hopefully, what is Janine communicating to Scott every day? You're a champion, Scott. What he may get communicated to him in other ways might be what?
He's average.
You're average. Yes. Think about strengths. Dwell on strengths in your family. Recognize strengths among each other and among your children. Give each other compliments. It will change the entire culture of your home. And that's how you create synergy, by those 2 rules. Valuing each other and recognizing strengths.
You know, my brother is Stephen, and this is kind of a tribute, if you will, to my mother's family leadership, communicating the worth and potential. This, for an example, is a classic, typical letter that I received when I was 37 years of age. I'd been married for 12 or 14 years, and this is a typical letter that I and my brother have received, and my sisters and so on. Dearest John, this is to let you know how much I love you, my dear son. I read into every hero I see on the screen. I read into you. You are so handsome, alive, full of virtue and integrity and goodness. What do you think that does to me? I think of you 2 or 3 times a day. I wish I could see you more, and we're so proud of you and your dear family and Jane, your precious children. Think of the impact that woman has had on myself, my brother, on our family, communicating that worth and potential. They actually have a legacy. She leaves a legacy in our own family. We call her Grandy, and she is Grandy, and they still have meetings, Grandy meetings. The women get together and have a meeting about Grandy and just talk stories and so on. That's the kind of legacy that can happen if a person values other people and builds on strengths. Now turn to page 41, would you? And how how can a family get to synergy? Here's a story that I want you to follow along. You've got define, clarify the problem, their way, my way, brainstorm, and synergize, finding the third alternative. So here's a story that let's engage and we'll find out where they are in this process, starting from the top. My husband didn't earn much money, but we finally were able to buy a small house. We were just thrilled to have a home of our own, even though the payments were such we would just barely be able to stay financially solvent. After living in the home for a month, we became convinced that our front room looked shabby because the threadbare couch my husband and I had grown very threadbare. We decided, although we couldn't afford it, we'd have to have a new couch. We drove to a nearby furniture store and looked at the couches. We saw a beautiful early American couch, just what we wanted. We were astonished at the high price. Even the least expensive couch was twice the price we thought it would be. The salesman asked us about our house. We told him with some degree of pride how much we loved it. Then he said, "How would that early American couch look in your home?" We told him it would look grand. He suggested be delivered the following Wednesday. When we asked him how we would get without any money, he assured us, no problem. We wouldn't even have to run a credit check, that they could defer the payments for 2 months. My husband said, "Okay, we'll take it." I told the salesman we needed more time to think. My husband replied, "What is there to think about? We need it now. We can pay for it later." I told the salesman we would look around, maybe come back. I could tell my husband was upset as I took hold of his hand and began to walk away. We walked to a little park, sat on a bench. He was still upset. He hadn't said a word since we left the store. I decided to let him tell me how he felt and to listen so I could understand his feelings and thinking. Finally, he told me that he felt embarrassed every time anyone came to our home and saw that old couch. He told me that he worked hard. He couldn't see why we made so little money. He didn't think it was fair that his brother and others got paid so much more than he did. He said sometimes he felt like a failure, that new couch would be a sign that he's okay. His words sank into my heart. He almost convinced me we should go back and get the couch. But then I asked him if he would listen to me while I told him my feelings. He said he would. I told him how proud I was of him, and that to me, he was the world's greatest success. I told him how I could barely sleep at night because I worried we didn't have enough money to pay the bills. I told him if we bought that couch in 2 months, we'd have to pay for it, and we wouldn't be able to do it. He said he knew what I was saying was true, but he still felt bad he could not live as well as those around him. What have they done? Where are they? They're right down to brainstorm, aren't they? They've been practicing empathic listening, their way, my way, and now they're right down to creatively brainstorming. Somehow we got talking about how we could make our front room more attractive without spending a lot of money. That's a different definition of the problem. Getting a new couch versus having the front room more attractive without spending a lot of money. I mentioned the local thrift store might have a couch that we could afford, and he laughed. He said that would really be an early American couch. It's far more early American than we've just seen. I reached out and took his hand. We sat there for a long moment just looking into each other's eyes. Finally, we decided to go to the thrift store. We found a couch that was mostly wood. The cushions were detachable. They were terribly worn, but I didn't think it would be too much trouble to recover them in some fabric that would match the colors of the room. We bought the couch for $13.50 and headed home. The next week, I enrolled in a furniture upholstery class. My husband refinished the wooden parts. 3 weeks later, we had a lovely early American couch. As time went by, we'd sit on those golden cushions and hold hands and just smile. That couch was the symbol of our financial recovery. Can you see the synergy? Listening to each other and the power of it. Now, what we want you to do is to commit yourself with your calendar to Synergize. Okay? Pull your calendar out, put down Synergize, and I'm simply saying somehow create a synergy situation with your calendar. Habit 6, Synergize. Now, I want to give you a little story about how to do it, 2 quick ones. The first is, a family got together, TV was bothering them. They sat down and talked about the television. Then they talked about their whole lives, their education, what they wanted, their grades, and all of this kind of thing. And then they let the kids decide what to do with TV. And what they did is they decided that they'd watch TV 7 hours a week, not a day, 7 hours a week. And then they set up rules and applied them, and it really worked, and it's worked ever since. I sat down with our grandkids. We went to a family of 4 and said to the parents, go take a vacation, we'll take care of your kids, 15 on down to 3. So here we are, down taking care of these kids. We started off, and the rule in Synergy is this: identify the problem together and work out the solution together. So I sat down with the kids, and I said, okay, kids, we're just here. What are we going to do on Monday? When are we going to say, when are we going to eat? Who's going to clean up? We talked about all of those things. We set out the rules, and it was a fantastic week. We said, what about the consequences if we don't do those rules? One of the kids said, we don't need any consequences. We'll do them, Papa. We'll do them. I said, okay. So Tuesday night, one was horsing around. It was 8:30 at night, and they should have had lights out 9:15. And finally I said to that one little boy, I said, I've got a consequence. Oh, he said, oh, I'll do it, I'll go to bed. I said, no, the consequence is simply this. If you don't go to bed, you don't get to play baseball tomorrow. Did he love baseball? No baseball? Boy, did those lights go out. And we had a harmonious week because we sat down and worked it all out together. And I've got to say that I read stories to that little 3-year-old that are the most bonding one-on-one stories in my whole life. So Synergize. Do something on your calendar to synergize as a family. Put that down. And then go to your flight plan and put down Synergize. You're going to learn how to synergize. Now, do you want to know what the hand sign is? You'll love it. Synergize. Can everybody do that? Say so. Synergize. Okay? All right. So put that on your calendar and put that on your flight plan. Now, let me ask you this. How many believe that if you'll creatively cooperate, value each other and value strengths, that you'll be better and make better decisions if you'll synergize than if you don't? How many would believe that? Would that be a good, okay? That's another check off. Okay, fill out your calendar.